Welcome to the League of Women Voters 8th Congressional District's Democratic Primary Forum. It's wonderful to see so many people here, and we want to thank our two candidates, Congressman Stephen Lynch and Patrick Roath, for participating this evening. We also appreciate the town of Weymouth for hosting us here at the Chapman Middle School, and a shout out to Donnie, who's been our guardian angel. My name is Kate Boland. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Hingham. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization encouraging the informed and active participation of citizens in government. As an organization, we do not support or oppose candidates or political parties. Our members actively support voter rights, education, civic engagement, advocacy on public policy issues after research, study, and consensus. We believe democracy is not a spectator sport. Our league is proud to host this forum, along with fellow leagues across the 8th Congressional District, including the League of Women Voters of Boston, Norwood, Sharon Stoughton, Westwood, Walpole, Dedham, and LWVMA. Together, we crafted these questions that will be used for the forum. Our goal this evening is to provide voters with the opportunity to hear directly from the candidates, enabling them to make an informed decision on September 1st. The League candidate forums follow very specific guidelines due to our nonpartisan position. In contested races, we are not allowed to ask questions if a candidate's opponent is not present. Our moderator may not be a member of our league or live in the 8th Congressional District. Tonight, we're grateful to have LWVMA co-president Courtney Henderson, who lives in Fall River, as our moderator. We do not allow any type of outside recording, as videos may be edited and not represent the actual proceedings. This evening's forum is being recorded by WETC, Weymouth's local access channel. Its unedited recording will be available to view on their YouTube channel and website, and there'll be a link on all of our league's websites. Now, if you'll all please silence your cell phones as a courtesy, I think we're all getting used to that, and please refrain from clapping until the very end of the forum. We need to allow as much time as possible to hear from the candidates and enable us to complete the evening in a timely manner. Moderator Courtney Henderson will now review the rules of engagement and begin. Thank you, Courtney.
Good evening and welcome. My name is Courtney Henderson, and I will be your moderator for tonight's candidate forum. Thank you to everyone for attending, and to our candidates Stephen Lynch and Patrick Roath for participating. Before we begin, a few brief rules to ensure fair, respectful, and orderly event. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for opening statements, 3 minutes to answer each question, and 3 minutes for closing remarks. I will indicate who responds first for opening remarks, each question, and closing remarks. Timekeepers are seated in the first row and will display cards at the 2-minute mark, the 30-second remaining mark, and then there will be a stop card, and that is when I will share that your time is up and we will move on. Please stop when instructed. Candidates, no crosstalk, no personal references or attacks against each other, and no direct questioning between each other. Answers should address the questions posed. Cameras are at the back of the room. This event is being broadcast and will be rebroadcasted at a later date. As Kate has already mentioned, I will remind you that please silence your phones and any other distracting devices. Please remain quiet while candidates speak. No clapping, cheering, or calling out during the forum. You may applaud both candidates after closing statements should you wish to do so. No campaign literature, signs, or handouts are allowed in this room. And as a reminder, please be respectful and civil. Disruptive attendees may be asked to leave. We will now begin with opening statements, and we will start with candidate Stephen Lynch. You have 2 minutes, followed by Patrick Roath.
Good evening. First of all, my thanks to Mayor Mike Malise of Weymouth, Weymouth Public Schools, and the League of Women Voters, and Mr. Roath for being here. My name is Stephen Lynch, and I have the great honor of being the U.S. representative for the 8th Congressional District here in Massachusetts. But representative is not just a title. It is a core responsibility, and my ability to successfully represent the hardworking families of this district comes from the fact that my family was one of those hardworking families in this district. My family struggled. I grew up in public housing in South Boston. I learned my trade as a welder not far from here at Quincy Shipyard. In my 20s, I was elected president of the Ironworkers Local 7 by the men and women of that union who are from Weymouth and Quincy and Brockton and Boston to fight for better pensions, fight for better working conditions, fight for better wages. Just as I fought beside families from Weymouth, Braintree, Quincy, Abington, and Hingham, when together we fought against the compressor station here in Weymouth. And I took that fight to the floor of Congress. I got to know this district by living here and regularly attending hundreds of town meetings, not just to speak, but to listen and understand the needs and priorities of the people that I represent. There isn't time enough to list the tens of billions of dollars that I've been able to bring back to our district. The ferry service, the new red line stations in Quincy, 5,000 new below-market housing units, seawalls, 5 new fire and police stations, just to name a few. And remember, I accomplished much of that as a member of the minority party in Congress. You can only imagine what we can do together if the situation changes. In closing, I'm optimistic that Democrats can take back the House in November, and I want to be there to fight for you. But there is much work ahead, and I ask for your support and your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Lynch. Mr. Roath?
Thank you, thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. Thank you so much to the League, for Courtney, thank you for doing this. Look, this is a terribly important time in our country's history. Everything is on the line. We have a MAGA extremist threat in the White House that is threatening everything that we hold dear about this country, basic due process protections, our way of life. We probably agree on that. But where we disagree is what we need to do to confront that challenge right now. I think confronting that challenge needs a new kind of leadership, a different kind of leadership than what we have been seeing, something that is bold, that is urgent, that is tailored to the problems of today, and is responsive to the needs that we have in this community and the threat posed by the Republicans in DC right now. That is what we are trying to offer in this campaign. It is not just about saying no to the other side. It is standing up for what Democrats believe in, our basic values, the things that we think people need to live a healthy, happy life, healthcare costs, housing, childcare costs, all things I hope we talk about, things we will never fix until we fix our broken and corrupt Washington politics. So we need to take corporate PAC money out of politics. We need term limits on members of Congress. That's what I would be fighting for. That's what I'm prepared to fight for as a democracy advocate, an attorney, a former aide to Governor Patrick, and a new dad. There's a different alternative to that, and it is the politics of the past. It is the same thing that has gotten us to exactly the position we're in. I'm running against an opponent who's been in the Congress for 25 years. He's been a career elected official since I was about 5 years old. He's taken millions of dollars in corporate PAC money. And the congressman speaks very powerfully about the perspective he brings to Congress, and I get that. But I am focused on the consequences of his decisions in Congress, in our communities. The last Democrat left who voted against the Affordable Care Act at a time we need to be pushing for universal health care. Thanking ICE, voting.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Okay, got it.
Thank you. Now we'll move into our first question, and Mr. Roath, you'll be answering this one first.
Okay.
What are your 3 priorities for the next term? What steps will you take to accomplish your priorities?
Great, thank you. Now I know you guys are serious about the time, which I appreciate. 3 steps for the next term. That is what the next Democratic Congress, God willing, is going to work on first. For me, it has to come down to cost. We have to rebuild confidence that the American dream can still work for people. We have to deliver on that. And for me, the thing that I think I can be most helpful in terms of priorities, is childcare access. It's personal to me. I'm a new dad. We're paying for that. It's crazy. It's $26,000 a year on average in Massachusetts for infant center-based daycare. That is so crazy, and we could do so much more at the federal level, not just to give people money for it, but to expand the pipeline, pay child care workers better so we have more affordable options, and push towards universal child care, get people that option so they can stay home or participate in the workforce. It's so important. So look, child care is number one. There's a long, long list of the things that we need to do after this Trump era ends. We need to prove to people that that American dream is real. So housing is the next thing I always talk about, right? We need to expand the supply of housing to bring costs down. We need to fight for universal health care. But I'll tell you, we're never going to get there without fixing our system and without fixing the people down there. It is about fixing that system and about providing a compelling, optimistic message that resonates across this country and builds majorities. Now, look, I just am convinced that the path forward is going to look different than the past. And we cannot keep just retreading the same thing. We can't keep sending the same people down. And we can't trust that the system that's got us here is going to continue to deliver. So look, after a couple of those things, you said three. So let's do childcare, let's do political reform, and then look, there are just some big problems in this district we need to solve. We are an incredibly climate-exposed district. The coastline runs all the way through here. That starts at in Boston and goes all the way down to Hull. We need to be part of the climate solution, and that has to do with mitigating the effects of sea level rise at a local level, and it also has to do with pushing for national, serious action on climate reform that tackles that problem and is going to make sure our community persists. And look, what we can't have is someone who is standing in the way of that progress, someone who's standing in the way of the Affordable Care Act passing, someone who is not only thanking ICE and funding it, but agreeing to this Lake and Riley bill that the Republicans passed last year that strips due process from immigrants. That is the opposite of the kind of leadership we need right now and in the next Congress. And look, that is the opposite of what I'm trying to provide, which has much more to do with standing up for our values.
Thank you. Mr. Lynch?
Could you repeat the question?
Absolutely. What are your 3 priorities for the next term? What steps will you take to accomplish your priorities?
So not necessarily in competing order. I think that money in politics is probably the most insidious impact and danger to our democracy right now. In the past, and let me be clear, the PACs that I have accepted money from are the iron workers. The iron workers donate, when I was an iron worker, they still do it today, 9 cents an hour, $3.60 a week. That's their PAC, you know. My opponent has had 4 mailings, you've probably got them all, and they're all from PACs that he's working with. So that's phony baloney, phony baloney. But going back to money in politics, we now have 5 companies that are approaching $5 trillion. We saw this happen with crypto. Crypto went up to the House of Representatives in the US Congress and spent $237 million on Democrats and Republicans. We lost 72 Democratic members on the vote. I lobbied against the Clarity Act because it was a giveaway to crypto. It did not protect consumers or investors. But the deeper issue was we lost 72 Democrats because of the amount of money that crypto was pumping into Congress, pumping into campaigns. Now we have AI. AI will dwarf what crypto did. And I'm afraid they're going to get the light touch legislation that they're looking for. And so I sit on a committee where I'm the ranking Democrat on AI. And we've got to fight that fight. And if in our current system, I'm just afraid that people are going to be overwhelmed with the amount of money that these companies like NVIDIA and these other companies can pump in. Quickly, we do agree on housing. We do agree on housing as being one of the big issues here. I'm happy to say that as a result of my work in Congress, we have more below market housing being created in this district than any other district in the United States today. I just cut the ribbon on the Lynch homes at Oak Colony, named after my mother. That's 878 units. We're doing another 4,000 units in the Mary Ellen McCormick development. I just went down, and we're in the midst of construction on down in Brockton at the development down there. We're creating a lot of housing. The problem is we're not creating housing for workforce housing, and that's a gap that we have to fill. And lastly, I would say AI itself, the idea of a artificial superintelligence.
Thank you, Congressman Lynch. Your time is up.
Thank you.
The next question will be posed to Congressman Lynch first, followed by Mr. Roath. What role should the federal government play in regulating elections and supporting state and municipal elections?
Under our Constitution, states, I think it's Article 8, states have the authority of designating the time, place, and manner of elections. And I think that's very, very important right now. Right now, you see, I have a bill that protects mail-in voting right now because we're afraid of what the president might do. He issued an executive order to the postmasters. There are 14,000 regional postmasters. One of them is here right now. He's retired. But he has directed them not to process and deliver mail-in ballots. We've gone to court against them. I'm part of a group called a litigation workforce. There's 30 Democrats in Congress. We have filed over 700 lawsuits against the Trump administration since January of 2025. We're fighting him every step of the way. But this issue on the encroachment that Trump and his administration are trying to force on the states and influence the elections is particularly insidious. I'm afraid, you know, with 14,000 postmasters out there, I'm afraid there might be a handful who are real Trumpers. And they may say, I'm going to obey by the executive order that the president told me not to deliver these ballots. So we have attorneys, ACLU, Democracy Forward, and other private attorneys that are actually in each state so that when these issues pop up, we'll be able to come forward with documents and motions already available to actually contest any postmaster who refuses to process the mail-in ballots. We think we have the legal, weight on this. We have the winning argument, but it is a valid concern. Not only that, but now the president is saying that he hasn't dismissed the idea that he might exercise what he has called a national security emergency in order to suspend the elections in some fashion. So, Mr. Roath is right. This is a time of great consequence. Our very democracy is at stake. And we have to, and I'm at the ramparts. I'm part of that group, that litigation task force that is suing the administration at every step when they go outside the law. And that's the aggressive nature that we have to have on our side, especially at the legislative level, but also the administrative level of the states as well, to defend their rights to actually conduct the time, place, and manner of elections. Thank you.
Mr. Roath?
Yeah, the Constitution does allow states to regulate elections. Very important check against a rampant, out-of-control federal government like we have right now. There is a federal law in the books called the Voting Rights Act. The congressman didn't mention it. That is a signal achievement of the 20th century. That is why African-American people in the South can vote. It was such an important thing that we worked for generations to get, and the Republicans are chipping away at that right now. The Republican Supreme Court has ruined it by taking out the critical provisions like Section 2 and the pre-clearance provisions that require southern states to actually enforce the law and provide people constitutional rights. The first order of business is to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. That would fix that. That is the most important thing that you can do at the federal level when it comes to elections. Look, this is an important subject for me. Some of you might know I referred to my background as a democracy advocate. I chaired Common Cause Massachusetts for many years. I'm extremely proud of that record. We got automatic registration done. We got mail-in voting done. That was because of our advocacy and the lawsuits we brought against Massachusetts. That is why you're getting those applications in the mail and why you're able to submit ballots back through the mail right now. We are still working on same-day registration. Everyone here should vote for it in November. It's going to be on the ballot. Critical things that we can do at the state level that I have been a part of. At the federal level right now, of course, stopping short of the VRA, we have to contest what the administration is trying to do and mostly being checked by the courts, including here in Massachusetts. I'll say while I was at Common Cause, another related subject that I spent a lot of time on is campaign finance reform, which is why this campaign is not taking corporate PAC money, which is why I think we need public financing of elections in this country, in addition to overturning Citizens United and changing the composition of the Supreme Court, if necessary, to get that done. And so when I talk about corporate PACs, I know what I'm talking about. And it's very easy to go online and see the hundreds of millions of dollars that Congressman Lynch, excuse me, that's not right, that's way too much.
Hundreds of millions.
That's way too much, I'm sorry.
You must
sir.
be holding out on me.
That's like Trump. That's like Trump. Sorry, no, it's smaller than that. So it's not just the labor money. There is the influence of corporate money in our politics. I'm trying to take a stand on that, and the congressman has not in his career. Thank you.
Next question, we'll begin with Mr. Roath, followed by Congressman Lynch. What are the most pressing priorities for addressing immigration reform? And please be specific if you can.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
What are the most pressing priorities for addressing immigration reform? And please be specific if you can.
That's me. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Look, a critical issue, and part of the reason why I am in this race. This is a country of immigrants, not exclusively, of course, but we have always had, the American story has been defined by our ability to accept other people into this country, to assimilate them, to put them, get the best minds in the world. That is the American experience. We need to defend that. We need members of Congress who are going to stand up for immigrant communities and who are prepared to fight for those communities and fight for that story so that it continues. This is personal to me. My wife's a daughter of a first-generation immigrant, of course, descended by Irish immigrants. And look, it's not that our immigration system is perfect. It needs comprehensive reform. That can include things like sensible controls at the border. It must include a pathway to citizenship for people who have been in this country for a long time, who want to become citizens. That's so important. What we cannot do is buy into the Republican attempt to weaponize immigrants in this country, to make them seem like the villains, blame all of our problems on them, everything from housing to whatever you can think of. It is an attempt to turn our communities against each other. And look, my opponent has bought into that framing and that story. He's voted to, first of all, create ICE back in 2001, to fund it multiple times, and to thank it last year after the assault on Minnesota. That is an agency that has outlived its purpose. It is exceeding its constitutional prerogative. It should be dismantled. The people who are involved in pressing those masked agents onto our streets should be prosecuted and jailed. It's not that we can't have domestic immigration enforcement. If you have that in your mind, we can do that, but not at that agency as it exists today. It has to go. That's the opposite of what he's done with his career. And I have to go back to the Laken-Riley Act. One member from the Massachusetts Congressional delegation voted for that bill last year. One member, Congressman Stephen Lynch. That was a bill, a Republican messaging bill, designed to put battleground Democrats in a hard place and designed to strip the due process rights of immigrants in this country. It has been deemed unconstitutional in courts. It was so extreme, and voting for that was a disqualifying decision by my opponent.
Congressman Lynch.
Thank you. We do need comprehensive immigration reform, no question about that. A couple of facts. First of all, I'm an original co-sponsor of the DREAM Act to allow children, unaccompanied children, to actually become citizens. So provide a pathway for immigrant children to become citizens in the United States at a time where that was not a popular, and that was probably 15, 20 years ago when it was first introduced, and I have been a supporter of that ever since. The way that I think that so Trump has used the immigration issue to turn us against each other. He has. And the way to undo that is to see each other. Look, when Trump says immigrants are poisoning the blood of our nation, your Nazi alarm should go off, right? He has said some horrific things in terms of immigration policy. And he has tried to use that as a lever to actually turn us against each other. I think that the most important thing we can do right now is actually to work out an immigration system that is fair. You know, when Mr. Roath refers to 2001, that's when ICE was at the border. That's when ICE was at the border. We created the Department of Homeland Security back in 2001 when that was created. That was not what we're dealing with right now. When Trump actually had ICE going into local neighborhoods, cities, and towns, when he had the National Guard going in, using federal agents in our local communities in violation of the Posse Comitatus Act. So he has used that instrument as something that, in a way that should not be used. But let me be clear. I have repeatedly voted to defund ICE. Repeatedly voted to defund ICE. One of the major pieces of legislation that we have put forward on our watch in terms of after Alex Preddy and Renee Good were killed was to force, first of all, completely re-engineer ICE, force them to take their masks off, force them to put name plates on, force them to put body cameras on, and force them to comply with the law, get them back on the border, get them out of our neighborhoods, and return a sense of stability where ICE is no longer a threat in our communities.
Oh, we're thirsty.
A little water
Thanks.
break.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. The rising costs of housing, energy, food, and childcare are among voters' primary concerns. How will you address these issues? Congressman Lynch, we'll start with you, followed by Mr. Roath.
Yeah. We've been tracking some of this on financial services industry, and we've been measuring the impact of the costs of everything in terms of consumer budgets since Trump has begun to put this series of tariffs on so many key elements that go into housing, food production. Look what has happened with just the price of gas. Just take that one element, the price of oil as well. When Trump launched his first military adventure into Iran, gas was about $2.80 a gallon. It hasn't come below $4 in the last 8 months or 10 months that I know of. But he also put on a 50% tariff on steel. So that meant development of major housing developments and construction. I know we have a lot of union building trades people in this audience. Iron workers, 50% unemployment rate right now, directly tied to the price of steel. He's put a 25% tax on aluminum, 25% tax on cement, 25% tax on imported lumber. We get most of our lumber from Canada. So all those tariffs have multiplied the costs of goods in general to consumers. So in fairness, it would greatly reduce the cost to everyone, and reduce the rate of inflation on all those goods if we were to eliminate the tariffs that the Trump administration has put in place. I think what they have also done, and talking about people who are, my constituents who are in the most desperate position. He's also cut a number of programs that Congress has put in place to actually help people in a tough spot. He's gone after SNAP. He's gone, SNAP helps, I mean, right in our own communities. You talk about Head Start, those kids get a little breakfast and a lunch and a snack during the course of the day. He's gone after that. Meals on Wheels, he's also cut funding for that. School lunch program, he's gone after that. That's just within the agricultural bill and the farm bill. So there are a lot of things that Trump has done to drive up the costs of all those elements, all those things that average families rely on each and every day. And so I think unwinding a lot of what Trump has done will help us enormously.
Mr. Roath?
Okay, great. Thank you. There is a reason why I talked about this in my opening statement. The out-of-control cost of housing, of childcare, of food, of course, basic necessities for families. Why? It's inconvenient, of course, for everyone, but the reason we need to focus our attention on bold, creative solutions on those problems is because that is how people are able to live the American dream. That's how they're able to get by. And we as a party, we as a Congress, we as a country need to do so much more to put the government on the side of people, expanding access to those goods, increasing the supply, and driving down costs. Look, what I just heard is exactly what I'm talking about. A litany of things blaming Trump, things that we can roll back when Trump is done. What we need is a plan, a future-oriented, optimistic vision of how we can tackle each one of these with our own vision of success. On housing, it's the first thing I talk about, right? There is something there's a lot of different ways you could fix housing. A lot of it has to do with supply and building more. We could finance the development of tens of millions of affordable housing units across this country. We could incentivize communities to think about zoning and density the right way. We can provide first-time help to first-time down payment, people who are buying a home who can't afford it. A huge basket of ideas that we can make real progress on. Same with childcare. Look, I went to Congressman Lynch's website this morning to see what his housing policy was, and there's nothing. There's not even a section that says housing, right? It's just an absence of creativity, an absence of urgency, a failure to provide a legislative solution for what's coming next, what we can hang our hat on and say, here is the agenda we want to run on. And it's so important that we solve these specific problems. It's just not going to get solved by people who think it's just, let's get the next election going, right? Give it another shot, we'll wind back what the Republicans did this time, we'll make some incremental progress. That's the old politics. It is not going to work. It is not going to solve the problems of today. And childcare is up there, and I hung my hat on it earlier, so I should say more, I think, in my last minute. Look, it is a huge burden for people. There is much more we can do to, expand the supply of childcare in this state, in this country, that has to do with the pipeline, that has to do with helping people who are trying to open childcare centers and can't afford to comply with all of the local, state, and local regulation. There's a lot more we could do for them. I have a lot of ideas about a lot of this stuff, and I know it's hard to get things done in Congress, and I'm sure the congressman would remind me of that. But we are never going to make progress on these things unless we advance, unless we put the ideas out there, we run on them, we run primaries on them, and try to get people in there who treat it like a mission and want to solve these problems.
What two measures would you propose to reduce gun violence while respecting the Second Amendment? We'll start off with Mr. Roath, followed by Congressman Lynch.
Great. Gun violence is a critical issue. We're sitting in a school auditorium, and one cannot help but be an American and feel fear sometimes when you walk into a crowded space. That is something that our children, I think of my daughter, should not have to live with, right? We can be a country that has a limited amount of right to protect a gun, to own a gun in the home, which the Supreme Court has said the Second Amendment allows, while providing much more serious legislation, regulation on the control of guns as they move through this country. First of all, there is a national background for people who own weapons. It's incredibly weak. We should be treating weapons like we treat cars. right? You get a license. If you're prepared to use one, it's tied very directly to the weapon. You are trained, and that's it, right? We have a federal system, so we don't have these states that are creating these crazy, loopholes, like the gun show loophole. Apart from that, that's number one. Number two is it's very serious to say we have a Republican Party that's not prepared to deal with this and will just block everything we try to do. And I know the Congressman views this issue as an important one as well. That said, we have to keep pushing. We have to keep putting common sense gun control laws before Congress. We need to elect a president in 2028 who is prepared to use every administrative authority to clamp down on gun ownership. And look, I don't agree with the Supreme Court's interpretation of the Second Amendment. That thing's from the 18th century. It's supposed to be about militias. It doesn't say that you have some inherent right to own a firearm. That is just not what the text says. And, it's a huge priority for us as a party going forward. I'm hopeful we can make progress.
Congressman Lynch.
So my family has had, direct sorrow. My cousin Brian was gunned down at a very young age, left a young daughter. My nephew-in-law, a police officer in Provo, Utah, was gunned down by a fugitive from justice. So my family has felt the sorrow and the pain and the loss, especially my cousin's young daughter. Never really got a chance to know her father. And so gun control has been a big issue for me for a long time. And we have gone and tried those big ideas. And at one point with John Lewis, we actually occupied the House chamber because the Republicans refused to take up a bill that we thought would make modest gains, in terms of not allowing someone on the no-fly list to purchase a firearm, or instituting a delay of 72 hours on the purchase of a firearm, eliminating the access that people might have to some of these high-capacity clips. Those, and believe me, that's not the be-all and end-all, but it was what we thought might be attainable. And because we don't control the House or the Senate or the White House, we haven't been able to get a bill to the floor. And that is deeply frustrating, and especially to me when, my family looks to me as other families would look to their representative and say, can't you do something? Can't you do something? And we haven't been able to do that, and it's deeply frustrating. And because of my family's pain and anguish, there's no one that feels that frustration more than I do. And we've got that bill, and I'm a co-sponsor of that bill. And we have had other bills as well that I have also lobbied on behalf of. Look, Moms Demand Action has listed me as an ally in terms of the fight that we want to wage against reckless access and unlimited access to firearms. So this is a fight that we're gonna have to continue to fight. It is one of those divisions that's established along party lines, and the NRA has a lot of control over the Republican lobby, and we're just going to have to try to win this through negotiations with our colleagues across the aisle.
There is no mention of the right to public education in the U.S. Constitution. What do you think is the role of the federal government in supporting education? We'll start off with Congressman Lynch, followed by Mr. Roath.
Sure. Look, our future depends on our ability to encourage the teaching profession, to support our teachers. When you think about the things that you could do in your life that would change the future, teaching our children is probably at the top of that list. When I think about my own life and the trajectory, I started out in pretty humble beginnings in the housing projects in South Boston. I had a handful of teachers between kindergarten and 8th grade that made a huge difference in who I became and who I am today. They taught me to read, not only to read, but to love to read. They opened up a whole new world to me. And I think that we have, look, we don't pay our teachers enough by any stretch of the imagination. We do not elevate that profession and our whole educational system in a way that would encourage the best and brightest to go into the teaching profession. My daughter is teaching kindergarten right now down in Raleigh-Durham, in North Carolina. She's at a religious school, and I see the difference that she makes in her kids every single day, and the way she embraces that profession. But she is desperately underpaid, dear God. And I just, I worry for her. I worry for her in that profession. But we need a whole reinvestment of our educational system across the board. It's something, and again, I don't like to harp on the Republicans, but sometimes they deserve it, and they have not been willing. They will level fund at best, the level of education and funding that we have out there right now. Special education, if you have a child that needs special ed, I deal with that on a regular basis in my office, where families are trying to get IEPs for their kids so that they can get the education and the support that they need. Right now I'm fighting to keep the Pappas School open, which is an educational facility and rehab facility for severely handicapped kids in Canton. And we're struggling. We are struggling for the dollars necessary to keep teachers and staff on board in that facility, some of the most desperately needy children in our society. So, it's got to be elevated as a priority for our country, and the consequences of short funding education will doom us as a country if we don't change that trajectory.
Mr. Roath?
I too was the product of public education, and teachers changed my life. And that is true for so many of us, and I completely agree. It is so important that we keep that story going for every American, no matter where they live, what kind of community they're in, what kind of family they come from. Public education, supporting public educators. The main thing is this question gets to is funding at the federal level, which has never been there, right? I mean, our schools are struggling across the South Shore and in Boston as well. Special education, IDEA funding, right? The federal government was supposed to pick up 40% of the tab, and they never have, right? It is about pushing. It is about trying to get the federal government to make good on those promises and commitments and actually dispense that money out to our communities. Now look, the public educators in our district are looking for a champion. They don't have one right now. I am really proud to have been endorsed by the Boston Teachers Union, the American Federation of Teachers Massachusetts, the Massachusetts Teachers Association. All of the major teachers associations who are organized in our district have endorsed me because they believe that they could do a lot better in the US Congress than we have. It is not just about Republicans. It is about getting Democrats who are prepared to fight for public education and push to support public educators. And look, we are going to have an opportunity here. The next Democratic Congress, God willing, the next Democratic president, they are tearing the education department down, right? It is going to be down to the studs if it even exists by the time we get in there. And that is an opportunity for us to win back the issue of education, to show people that the federal government is serious about supporting public schools at the K-12, at the community college level. It's actually not just K-12 in this question. We should talk about community colleges and all of the amazing things that happens in our district, which is a very important federal funding source that needs to be protected. Remaking the education department to truly be an excellent institution that is focused on delivering the best for every child and for every adult who is trying to get a better job and get that skill. That has to be at the core of our program. And I went to these unions and made that case, and they made their choice.
How can Congress protect the future of Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security? We'll start off with Mr. Roath, followed by Congressman Lynch.
Okay, well, let's start with Medicare and Medicaid. The train that is coming at our Commonwealth from the federal government is the one big, beautiful bill. If the cuts to Medicare and Medicaid that Republicans put into that bill, which they did to set off all of the tax cuts for billionaires, if that actually goes into effect, we are in a lot of trouble. This state will suffer. People who are vulnerable will suffer. We will lose community health centers in the state. And so, look, the number one thing has got to be making sure that thing never comes to pass. I suspect the congressman agrees. Defending Medicare and Medicaid, expanding Medicare and Medicaid, pushing for Medicare for all, which I would co-sponsor, trying to lower the Medicare age. That is the direction we need to be pushing. We can talk at length about all of the ideas that are out there about reforming healthcare. The question's a little more focused on protecting, but protecting is just the first stop, right? We need to make those systems better. We need to drive down healthcare costs largely by getting the private market out of healthcare, stopping corporate greed, and expanding universal healthcare access to everyone in this country, like all the other developed countries in the world have. Look, my opponent is the only Democrat left in Congress who voted against the Affordable Care Act. That was the most significant step we took on that journey, a generational historic expansion of Medicaid. If everyone had voted like him, this question would be a totally different story, right? We made progress with the ACA, and we need to defend it, improve it, push further, not be an obstacle to getting it done. Social Security, somewhat separate, in the early 2030s, that trust fund is going to run out. That's coming pretty soon. And if we do nothing, it is going to cut benefits by about 23, 24% across the board. That will double the elderly, it'll double poverty among the elderly in the United States. And this is not just some entitlement program like you pay into Social Security, right? You've done the work to get that check by the time you're ready to retire. And look, we can talk about how to defend it, how to fix that. The main thing you can do is tax people a bit more to cover up the shortfall in the trust. Right now, the payroll tax that funds Social Security tops out at around $185K a year. We can give people a break up to a higher level, say 400, 500, and then you have it kick in again, right? So we just bring in a bit more money from the people who are wealthiest, who can afford to do that, to replenish the trust. The longer term solution, the problem is the mismatch between all the people retiring, not enough people in the workforce putting the revenue in. We need to make this country easier for people to live in and have families and want to participate in the workforce and fixing housing, childcare, healthcare cost. That is the long-term solution really to all of this.
Mr. Lynch.
Well, that was rich. That was rich. Let's talk about for-profit healthcare and the impact that has had on the cost of healthcare in this country. You seem to have forgotten what you've been doing for the last 10 years. There's a quote from Don Quixote. You are known. What does it say? You are. Show me your company, and I'll tell you what you are. My opponent has been working for Ropes and Gray for the last 10 years. Ropes and Gray is famous for two things. One, they bust unions for a living. Number two, they push for-profit health care like Cerberus Capital. They advise for-profit health care in taking over not-for-profit hospitals and then sucking the federal money out and paying off their investors. That is a horrific system that should not be allowed in this country, and yet that is the business that my opponent has been in for the last 10 years. And that is the truth. That is the honest truth. That's what he has been doing. I know he talks about years ago when Governor Patrick was here, but the last 10 years, he's been advising private equity, and I've been trying to clean up the mess afterward. That's what infuriates me. That is so rich. Right now, I am involved with legislators from this district to try to rebuild and reopen Norwood Hospital. We lost Kearney Hospital, we lost Norwood Hospital, we lost Neshoba Valley Hospital. We're probably going to lose a couple of others because of the impact of that bankruptcy that Stewart Healthcare created in this district. We lost over Quincy Hospital. That's another one we lost. That was a Stewart Healthcare deal, too. We lost over 1,000 beds in our area. And that's why if you were hurt today and you had to go to the hospital, they have a practice they call now, it's called boarding. Boarding, which is when you go to the hospital, there's no bed available for you because of all those hospital beds we lost because of for-profit health care and the bankruptcy at Stewart. That's what we're dealing with right now. And that's shameful. That is shameful. Ask Elizabeth Warren what she thinks about for-profit, private equity in health care. Thank you.
Keeping with that theme, the next question is, how do you propose to improve the affordability?
Okay.
We're going to move on to the next question. How do you propose to improve the affordability of health care and ensure access to health care for all? We'll start off with Congressman Lynch, followed by Mr. Roath.
Okay. So, number one, I would, obviously, to repeat myself, I would get rid of for-profit health care. No more private equity. Here's the problem with private equity. When private equity takes over a hospital, it becomes a dual mission. The main mission for private equity that my opponent advises is to make money for your investors. That's the main thing. And then if there's money left over, we'll provide health care for patients. We need to get that out. If we just have not-for-profit hospitals, not-for-profit health centers, not-for-profit nursing homes, they'll have one mission, which is to provide good quality health care. And that's what we should have in this country. We should not allow private equity or hedge funds to siphon, or real estate investment trusts to siphon off money that we're giving them for Medicare or Medicaid. That should not happen. That should be illegal. So number one. The other, one of the other things that we can do here in terms of lowering the cost is we do need to revisit the Affordable Care Act. So the Affordable Care Act, right now in this country, 7% of the people are on the National Health Care Plan, which is the Affordable Care Act. 93% of the people are not on that plan because it's too expensive. We've had a lot of time now on the Affordable Care Act to see what the impact has been. The costs have continued to go straight up. It's been a 100% increase in the cost of health care since the Affordable Care Act went into effect. Not only can't you keep your own doctor, you can't keep your own hospital. We've lost about 1,000 beds. So we need to revisit health care in a big way. And it might involve Medicare for all. Medicare for all. So back when we debated this, the Affordable Care Act, my fear was, first of all, the provision that really rankled me is that it gave the insurance companies an antitrust exemption, so they didn't have to compete, and that pumped up the price of health care. You're never going to lower it if you give them an antitrust exemption. The other piece was that they taxed union health benefits to try to pay for people in the system. Which, when people go out and stand on a picket line to get more health care, you shouldn't punish them with an additional tax. But we have to sit down. We have to work this out. And we need something better than the Affordable Care Act. That is not working right now. It's too expensive. A year ago, I'll stop. Okay.
Mr. Roath.
Thank you. The previous question was about defending Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security. And instead of providing any answer to that question, my opponent started attacking me for something that's false. I just had nothing to do with Stewart, never worked on it, no idea anything about it. And I know you object to the law firm work, and that's fine. I'm really proud of my background, actually. I got started in politics working for Governor Deval Patrick. I did practice law. I chaired Common Cause, as we discussed. I've been in the Justice Department as a law clerk, a State Department as a Fulbright Fellow, campaigns, the White House. Look, I'm really proud of it. I'm happy to defend all of it. None of it had anything to do with for-profit healthcare. Okay, thanks. The thing that a member of Congress can do is actually act on that problem. There are bills. Elizabeth Warren has one that you mentioned. Senator Warren has a bill that would stop exactly the problem that was caused by Stewart. I would co-sponsor that on day one. He hasn't co-sponsored it, right? He's not there. When it comes to, trying to solve these problems by trying to fix our healthcare system writ large, I hear nothing. I hear the ACA. If you want to repeal the ACA, just go with the Republicans. That is the building block. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy. It is not going to be easy to pass serious healthcare reform. We fought like crazy to get it done in 2009 and 10. There are things we can do along the way that actually would bring down healthcare costs, right? Some of them have to do with breaking up pharmacy, the dedicated, captured pharmacy benefit managers that are adding costs, not helping anyone. We can solve that on the way to universal healthcare, on the way to getting something like Medicare for All done, and at least using that bill as a blueprint, right? To get everyone some baseline level of coverage in this country. Saying it cannot be done just defies the global reality, where other developed countries have figured out some way to provide healthcare to people that is accessible, that is universal. It would help people who want to start a new business, right? You leave your job and you're not going to be totally screwed because you don't have healthcare. It'll help entrepreneurship. And look, pretending that the ACA is only about the 7% of people covered by a connector plan is just wrong. The ACA is the reason why people are not being discriminated against by insurance companies for pre-existing conditions. The ACA is why young people can stay on their parents' plans longer. It's why there is an incredible, as I mentioned, the amount of Medicaid funding that has come to the states as a result of that bill. We've fought for so long to make sure the Republicans don't repeal that bill. And that was the animating fight of the first Trump administration. And to say that, to say that we are going to just wipe it off the law books and maybe get to Medicare for All, I'm not exactly sure what he said, is absolutely the wrong approach. It is so, so wrong.
We will now close out with final remarks. Candidate Roath will speak for 3 minutes, followed by Congressman Lynch for 3 minutes.
Okay, well, that went fast. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. This was a wonderful. Thank you to the League. Thanks, Courtney. Thank you, Congressman, for coming to this. Look, this is a consequential election. I really believe that. It is about who is going to be the likely member of Congress from our district, yes. But we have a bit of a job here to set the direction of the country, right? We can set the direction of the party, set the direction of the next Congress. That's exciting, and I hope that you all take that responsibility really seriously, because there is a real choice up here. There is the politics of the past. There is taking corporate PAC money. We just talked about the ACA vote, taking money and acting in a way that is inconsistent with our basic American values, like voting for the Lincoln Riley Act. That is not the approach that we need right now. I am trying to offer something different, that is optimistic, that is urgent, that is tailored to the problems of our time, is about providing serious, constructive solutions to everything that is going on. It's not like we'll solve it all at once, but we need to make some progress towards getting there, right? It is so important that we try to do that. Do I have 3 minutes or 2?
You have 3.
You have 3. Okay, great. Thank you, sorry. It is so important that we make progress getting there. And look, this is what I've been doing for the last year and a half. I quit my professional thing to just try to run this race. We have a grassroots campaign that I'm really proud of, and we are knocked tens of thousands of doors across this district. You might have gotten knocked already. I hope you do soon if you haven't. I'm really proud of the team we've put together. I'm proud of the positions we've taken, the advocacy we are doing. That is what we need if we are going to renew the promise of this country and, live that American dream that my parents experienced that set my life on course. It's all very abstract, and ultimately, politics is about people. It's not policy. The person that I am always thinking of is an 8-month-old who is hopefully asleep in Jamaica Plain right now. And that is what I'm focused on, more than anything, as a father and how I would behave as a public servant. We have to be thinking about the generation of Americans who is coming up right now. What kind of country are we going to hand on to her? Is it one we're proud of? Is it one where she can flourish? Is it one where her rights are protected? I think that is in jeopardy right now. And I want to be part of the project in our nation's capital of proving that there is something there that can still work. We have 19 more days in this election, and it would be a great honor to have your vote. Thank you very much.
Congressman Lynch, your turn.
Again, thank you to Courtney Henderson, our moderator, and the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. In closing, I would like to quote one of my predecessors, John Adams, who served in the First Continental Congress many years ago. John Adams once said, facts are stubborn things. So let me offer some of those stubborn facts. First, as a senior member of the Oversight Committee, I previously investigated President Donald Trump twice. Both of those investigations resulted in impeachments. In my role on that committee, I interviewed witnesses, gathered evidence, and voted on the weight of the evidence to impeach Mr. Trump twice. And now, because I have repeatedly voted to defund ICE and force them to remove their masks, and wear body cameras, and wear name tags, and comply with the law. And because I have demanded access for my own personal oversight investigations at both the Plymouth County and the Logan Airport ICE facilities, the Trump White House has labeled me an ICE agitator, which is like a badge of honor for me. Those are the facts. Our country is in a time of tremendous consequence. And I remember when I first thought about running for public office. This was after I was president of the Ironworkers Union in a position of trust. I ran as a state representative representing a couple of small neighborhoods, South Boston and Dorchester, in the city of Boston. And they had a lot of challenges there. A lot of domestic violence, a lot of gun violence, a lot of families in need. And I weighed in, and I fought like hell for those little neighborhoods. And they saw that I could handle that position of trust. Then I became a state senator, and I represented about 140,000 people. I learned a lot in both those positions. There's no way in hell I could have went onto Congress and represent close to 800,000 people without all that experience and the lessons I learned. And now we're in this time of great consequence. And I bring that perspective as an iron worker, as someone who struggled, whose family struggled. I bring that perspective with me every single day in Washington, D.C. And that perspective is not widely shared. It's something that I bring because of my background. And I hope you will support me. And I ask for your vote. And I thank you for coming tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to take the time to thank you all for attending and engaging in this civic process. And I also want to share my deep appreciation to our candidates, Congressman Stephen Lynch and Mr. Patrick Roath, for taking part in this forum. And I would also like to thank our organizers and our lovely timekeepers for their assistance this evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
There are some very, very important dates on the screen here. I'm going to read it just because I think the text might be a little tiny in the back. But Saturday, August 22nd is voter registration deadline, so please make sure to get your registration in if you haven't done so already. Tuesday, August 25th is the deadline for vote by mail applications. And then between the dates of August 22nd through August 28th is the early voting period. And then September 1st is our primary election day, and that is when mail-in ballots must be received. To check your voter status or to register to vote, you can check online at voteinma.com, or you can contact your city clerk or town clerk office. If you know someone who can't drive to the polls, please offer them a ride. And to that, I say good night and have a safe drive home.